Now I want to introduce you to a fantastic modeler, Steve Sherrill. Steve builds micro layouts, if you can believe that. And he's going to talk to us tonight about some of his micro layouts and about a stub switch that he built that I'm anxious to hear. And he's also going to start a new series next week called What Do You Want to Talk About? And I'm really looking forward to that because I've got some things that I'd like to talk about or at least get your reaction to. And I'm going to use Steve's segments next week and following that to ask some questions and see what kind of response we get. So Steve, welcome and thank you so much for doing this.
Micro layouts. There was a guy named Carl Arndt that actually wrote a book about micro layouts, designs, and different people's ideas of how to construct and make micro layouts. He's passed away, I think, a few years ago, and his book is still available. If you want to also refer and see a lot of micro layouts, you can go on YouTube and look up micro layouts under that heading, and you'll see a lot of them. I believe they're becoming more and more popular in the United States. They're very popular overseas because of the lack of space that Europeans have in their homes. They're great operations for taking and showing off and sharing your modeling. What I have here, I actually showed one already, which was a Lazy Susan micro layout. Unfortunately, it's in the house and I'm out in the train room, so I can't show you that one. But that was on a Lazy Susan that turned in a 360, and you could actually run both sides of the railroad. The one I've got here that I'm going to show you is 12 by 26 inches. It's got some fairly unique things on it in the fact that it's got a turntable made out of a DVD. It's got a sector plate. And it also has a stub switch, which we're going to get into later on how they're constructed. But this has operation, and the object of this layout is to get these two cars on this side, on this track over here, in an opposite setting. So in other words, the orange car will be here, and the red car will be here. And then we reverse it. So this takes about 30 minutes to do two cars at the speed for which this locomotive runs, which is fairly slow, I would think. And we have to couple and uncouple the cars. And this particular layout, all the dimensions only allow one car in a movement. So in other words, when I hook up this car that you're going to see here, it can only run to the end of the sector plate. That's the only room for one car. So I'll bring the sector plate because I want to drop the locomotive, the car. I have to make sure I get it lined up because I'm on a side angle here, which I didn't quite get it lined up. All right, come on. Yeah, with me, there was an earthquake here just then. So I'll use the turntable now to go around this car, which I think I had the truck off, but so there's a lot of things going on that you have to keep straight. So now I've got the stub switch thrown. And then once this is dropped off, I then have to go over and get the other car and do the same thing. Bring it back over here. So you can see there's some operation on these little micro layouts. And if you just like fiddling, these are great little playtime. So again, this one is 12 by 26. But we come over here, and I have to turn everything around. This is one I made in about an hour or so. And since I'm all battery powered, I don't have to do any wiring. Normally, I would have painted the track all black and done a little more scenicking, but I wanted you to see what it looks like with all that done. So what we have here is a regular link switch with the points. And that switch sits about 9 inches long. What we want to do is we want to cut off this part here. We remove it. And since this is an Atlas switch, which I got secondhand, by the way, for less than $5, and our points to remove are right here where they have these plates, which supposedly allow electric continuity to go through. So, but you only have to cut the inside and outside rail at the same width and length directly across. And then those plates and everything will come off underneath with just a little bit of force. And so what you then have is a switch which is only 5 inches long, and you have made enough room for a car that I run on my railroad. So that gave me enough room to run a car, an extra car. So what I do is I then have to put I use Caboose Industries ground throws and line it up so that I can throw the rails so they line up. I had, let me just come over here to prototype for a moment. The prototype, you can see what they do here in the prototype. And all we're doing is creating the same thing. This rail here moves, this piece of track moves. We have the same thing over here where this piece of track moves. I have it anchored back about 13 ties. This is HO track, 13 ties back. I have done less and I have done more depending on how much stress you want to place on this machine. But 13 seems to be a really smooth performance. So I just took that as what I'm using. So for this particular micro here, I used all the scraps that I had left. I had some road bed from a previous project. I had some track from this is all from previous projects. And I got a box full of Atlas track at a train show for $20 with like 14 turnouts and 12 bumpers, thing that you wouldn't normally use. But I went ahead and got those. If you were to use this as a test track, you'd probably want to have something like this, which is a re-railer, because you don't want to pull it, putting the trucks on it, everything. Also, you want bumpers so you don't run off your test tracks, which I know we probably never do. And so what I do, I take those and cut those down right behind the bumper itself. And that gives me a little, about 1 inch piece of track with the bumper end on it. And it doesn't look like that ugly thing that normally comes with it. Some of the tools I use for this, of course, have to cut the track. I use large spikes to spike down the track here. And I think I got this about 20 years ago, this whole container. But you can see how large these spikes are. They're pretty big. And they'll hold a lot. And then put the curves, I use the ribbon rails. This is a 22-inch curved ribbon rail. Supposedly goes in there. Makes it much smoother. And push the nails in, of course, with the spikes in with the biggest tool we have. And then I'm already planning what I want to put here. And so after I make all the cuts and everything and put the track in and test it and make sure it's running good, I've created a little partial scene where I think I'm going to, once I finish, here's a building that's going to go on, maybe a water tower next to it, put grass and some stuff very similar to the other one we had over on the other side. I think that what you have is something that you can take anywhere and show it off, operate it, and just have fun with it. It's kind of fun just to switch even one switch. When I was testing it, I ran the thing for like 30 minutes and didn't even realize it going through the switches. Now, stub switches were around until about 1900, and then as speed increased, they took them up on standard gauge railroads. They still were around for the narrow gauge, and there's still a triple stub switch up at EBT in Warbisonia, Pennsylvania today, if you want to see it.
Why did the railroads use the stub switches, Steve?
Well, let me refer to Google. So that is the authority. They said that there was simple, cheap construction, and nearly all stub switches are replaced with standard point switches due to lack intrinsic alignment. So they were hard to line up. And as the speeds got greater, they had to make 100% certain that they were all lined up when they went through the switches. But that was the main reason. To me, it makes a lot of sense for model railroads to have that, especially for narrow gauges, because we're not really running real fast, and it saves us a lot of space. I mean, I can get an extra car on these little 12-foot cars, and even one of the 18-foot cars that we use is what I actually cut out. So to me, that's very valuable space that we can use on a micro. I have no switches like that on my big railroad. There's 75 other ones, but not one of those. I just didn't think about it when I was building it. So otherwise, I would have had a couple. But these little micro, they're easy to build. They're quick. And if you're just starting out, this is what you want to build, something like this. You can hand lay the track. It's only a little bit of hand laying. You can detail a building out if you want. And you can also insert this later on, the whole thing into a more detailed and complete layout. So, I mean, it's just got a lot of advantages. Now, Harrisburg, they just had an On30 show, and I believe there was 8 micro layouts there. So to me, that was a lot of micro layouts that people are bringing to show their equipment and some of the work that they've done. So, I mean, are there any questions on anything? I
think it's a great idea because a lot of people are, they're downsizing. They don't have the space they used to have. And, the one that you showed, the 12-inch by 26-inch, my God, you could spend easily a couple of hours just playing with that.
Oh, listen, there's 2 cars on there now. You think it's easy with 2 cars. Try 3 cars and what you get. Where you'll be racking your brain. I run this 2-car thing a lot, but I put a 3rd car down there and I said, I'm only going 2 cars. Really, Steve, I mean, it makes you think.
Hey, Steve, it's Greg. I got a question. I didn't notice on the other layout until I thought of it too late. How do you ballast around the stub switch when you're moving the rail?
Well, the stubs. What I did not put anything down there.
Okay, I see.
Now, I could do it. I was going to put some kind of material under it, a very, very thin styrene or something like that, paint it and stick it to it. And then I would be able to slide it with, but being that it's black, it doesn't really make much difference. Now I could do it back here probably and not have any worry. We have a little problem up here maybe.
How far up do you spike it?
It's not spiked at all.
Okay, well, how far back, I guess I mean?
13, I've done 10 ties, and I've done 13. This one is 4. I think this is 13. Another one over here is like 12.
Okay.
So it depends on what you feel. I just I've even believe it or not cut a rail so it would actually slide easier. If you use a real thin disc, you don't get much of a gap, and it really comes over easy then. But when you spike it down in this material, the big spikes that I use, they're probably 1/4-inch spikes. We don't have anything to worry about as far as movement.
Okay,
now, I have a little reader on here that Bob Gelmacher gave to me, and that's a little reduced too. That's only like 3 inches long. So that's something special I put on.
Yeah, that's nice too.
Yeah. Oh, well, believe me, it's really nice. It's a 2-piece deal, and it sits in there between. It's got a place on the ends where it sits in between the ties, so it's down low. You will have to make sure that your KD hooks down under, the supposed hoses.
Yeah.
You got to make sure those are up, but I cut all those off anyway because they just seem to cause more problems than they're really worth. But yeah,
and I see you like the dental picks also for uncoupling.
Somebody introduced me to that, and I gave a bunch of those away.
Yeah, we take them to all our operating sessions.
Listen, they are wonderful. They really are. They work great, and they don't scratch anything up, Yeah,
don't tell anybody. I've stolen my wife's.
Well, we don't sell. We can't get these in West Virginia.
Steve, how did you make the larger transfer table?
This one? Oh, this one. This one?
Yeah.
It's a sector plate. It's not a transfer table. They're called sector plates. Well, many years ago, the Atlas book, layout book, had a layout with a turntable where they put a nail in the middle for a turntable. And I said, well, look, if I put a nail on the end, I got, a sector plate. And so there it is. And the stops are nothing but spikes, the height of the thickness of the tie. And so I can get those one end to the other. You do have to kind of look and line up the middle ones.
Yep.
But believe it or not, I have put a Lazy Susan under this one when I took it to a train show. But it's not as effective as the other layout. I wish I could have shown that layout again tonight, but it's just not. It's in the house, I took it in there. I don't have room for all this stuff now.
Yeah, I really like the one you the other one you brought up to Harrisburg. That was a neat setup.
Yeah, well, maybe in the future I'll bring it out here and do it again. That was kind of unique. That was actually for people with disabilities or people who can't stand a long time, because it's when you put it on a table, a wheelchair will go right up to that and be the perfect height. We have a modeler that comes over, and he has some mobility problems, and we let him sit in the chair, and I tested it with him, and he handled it great. So, that's kind of, it's kind of different, to have that kind of capability of a model, especially when we're all getting older. And what are we going to do when we can't stand up for a long time on the railroads, mine is a pretty big railroad, and I get tired walking around it. Now I've got a hip problem, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. But, that's something that we're probably all going to have to go through. But it's just, I will show the other one at another time,
Well, I tell you, I'm impressed with the sector plate. I've never thought about that before, but that's a neat idea.
Well, now, look, I've made it very simple. some people put it on a piece of wood and move the wood. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little more complicated than I wanted to do. I like simple. I like to show people the ease of this stuff building. And when people say, I don't have room for a layout, I let them come over and run this thing for about an hour, 2 cars.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. Everybody thinks they have to have a big layout. It's not true. It's just not true.
Steve, I have a question.
Me down
Sure.
here.
Steve, a gentleman on YouTube asked, do you have problems making the scenery match up with so much rail movement, being as you have to leave so much space?
Well, I don't, because I understand that you can only scenic so much. Now, I don't know. Well, I do know, because the sector plate has, can you see? Well, you can see this, right? I can lift this up over a lot of scenery and still drop it down. So I could probably, do some more scenicking on that. But I'm okay with it. Most people don't notice it because it's black. It's kind of like, if it was red, yeah, it would probably stand out. But being that the track is kind of weathered a little bit, it's black down here. Now, if I had to do it again, I would have put, because it's all cork road bed on top, I would have maybe got a sheet so you wouldn't see the separations, to try to hide it a little bit more, But I just, this is one of the things you do for a couple hours and your building's done.
That doesn't look that bad.
No, I mean, it is what it is. I would rather have some, a little more background than what I have here. I just stuck this here. I'd rather like to have something over here, or put it into a shadow box type thing. I think that would be a lot more effective, but that's all. We can still do that. That's not impossible to do, even at this stage of the game. But, you just put a few trees on it, a plastic field building, and you weather it up, and you've got something that, hey, it's got a little something going on, little action, and it'll keep you busy. And you can pick it up and, put it under your bed if you want. So, or you can hang it on the wall or something. It doesn't have to, get in the way. But right now it's on my operator's desk, which it almost fits perfect. And so it doesn't interfere with my other layout over here, which I'm still going to be working on to finish up a little bit. And I'll probably share that at another time. But this one would literally maybe a couple hours to build. I had I had all the parts, all the things necessary, and I just went over and got them. They were from other projects that I had done. And this particular one, you could wire up. This one, the other one will be a little more difficult because it's got a lot of things going on, But this one, you could just put 2 wires at one end, 2 wires at the other end. You should be able to run it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a real advantage for somebody who had DCC, or it can be a test track, like I say. You get to check your cars. We always have that one set of wheels that won't go through a switch, but you turn them around and maybe they'll go through a switch or something. But this stuff is just fun. And
well, I can't thank you enough for showing it to us, because I'm really impressed with it, to tell you the truth. I've never built one, but for a lot of people, this is the answer.
Well, I think so. Especially the people in Florida, that don't have much room to build a layout.
Well, you're right about that. Talk to us a little bit about this new series that we're going to be starting next week called What Do You Want to Talk About?
Well,
this was your idea.
Well, it's going to be, what do you want to talk about? You know, I've been fooling with trains now for 70 some years and experienced a lot of stuff. I was even married on a train and got national coverage on that, by the way. On TV, that's no lie. My wife is so impressed. I had nothing to do with that. But, you know, things like that. I just want to, you know, I asked you to, one of my first questions is going to be, who's the best model railroad you've ever seen? That's my first question coming up. Everybody can think about who's got the best model railroad you've ever seen. And we'll see. And I think you're going to be surprised because I'm going to give you one that nobody's ever heard of. And this guy had the best railroad I've ever seen. Yep.
Well, that's something for all of us to think of because you're going to do that the first time for next week.
Yep. And what I'd like to do is to have a lot of participation. You know, that's a question that we've got going on. What's the best railroad you've ever seen? And, you know, everybody has seen railroads. I don't care if it's 3-rail, 2-rail, or monorail. It doesn't make any difference to me. Trolley, you know, jet train, it doesn't. If you like the layout, you know, share it. Tell me who it was. And maybe we see them in the magazine and maybe not. You know, there's been a lot of people who have got beautiful railroads and you never hear about them. And I've been to one. The guy did get in the magazine a little bit, but he was just a fantastic modeler. Fantastic. You know.
Well, I'm really looking forward to this series. I can't thank you enough for coming up with the idea and agreeing to do it. So we will start this off next week.
Well, I guess I talked myself into a lot of work now.
Yes, sir. Can't wait. I appreciate you mentioning trolley. Martin and I both appreciate you at least mentioning trolley was a possibility.
Oh, hey, I do. I'm going to make a trolley micro. I'll do it, and I'm going to have it next week.
I can't wait to see it.
Now, I am going to do it with the one I've already got because Bob made a trolley that if you went and hit a bumper, it went the other way. Yeah. I've got one now, and I'm going to put it on there, and you know, that's just for you.
Bump along. I got it. Well, I'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Steve.
Okay. Bye now.
Yes, sir.